thank you for selecting this session for the Inclusion Collaborative Conference 2019. We are thrilled to be here to share all of the hard work we had. Heads up, the presenters have to stay in the box. And hi to all of you out in the world who are streaming us. Welcome. I know probably some of you, so thank you for being there to support this presentation. I always feel like when I come here, it's not like we're trying to change belief systems, because technically I think everybody who comes here really truly believes in inclusive education for all of our students with disabilities. And so thank you for coming. I also have the honor, I'm starting to walk, so you guys, I might need a behaviorist to start cluing me, to give me a nonverbal cue not to start walking all around. I've had the honor and the privilege the last 2 years to work with this amazing group from Otis Elementary, Alameda Unified School District, in addition to their superintendent, their assistant superintendent, their program directors, and all kinds of leadership. Because you'll see, and I think you all know, if you're doing inclusive education, it does take a village. And so rather than just have like a screenshot of all the names, we thought the visual humanity of people that it takes to make this work would be a better statement. And so I had to ask special permission to bring 4 other people besides myself. You're going to get a little bit of me and a lot from these implementers who are out there, fully including students with autism at Otis Elementary from kindergarten through 5th grade, and they're going to give you all kinds of ideas. Joan Ralph is the behavior specialist. Tanya Harris is the principal. Michelle Hernandez is our general education kindergarten teacher, one of the general ed teachers. They wouldn't let us bring the whole staff, and the principal wouldn't either. And Kara McClymont, who is the education autism specialist for the team. We're here, I think a lot of this room is filled up, and all of you who are streaming and you chose this session realize that over the years, more and more children are becoming eligible for autism. Raise your hands if that's like really true for you personally where you work. I see a lot of hands raised. At this point, the latest numbers we have is 126,809, where all of you on those IEP teams have checked that box for autism. And that's almost 16% of all of our students with disabilities. So that's a lot of students. So how are we doing in educating students with disabilities? That is autism. When we look here for English language arts, you'll see that 54.4% have not met their grade level standard. I think we could do better. 62.3% have not met their grade level standard in math. When we look at outcomes and exit reasons for our individuals with autism, we see that only 43.3% are graduating from our public education here in California. And when we look at our post-secondary outcomes, I think you guys are all aware, we have to kind of check on that and go, how'd we do? You know, we got them in preschool perhaps, and then all along the way, and if they stay through our post-secondary program, even through age 22, how did we do? Well, what we can see is only 6% are competitively employed, and I think you know that there's a new law, yes. Oh, thank you. My visual prompt that I was leaning outside the box. Thank you. You guys are really nice. So we have that 6% are competitively employed. And there's a law now that by the year 2022, all individuals, students with disabilities, need to be competitively employed in integrative work settings. So gone are the days where we're preparing our students to go be with other individuals with disabilities. Why? Because that's a form of segregation. And so now more than ever, and I think I'm preaching to the choir here, we have to prepare them to be as independent as possible, to have self-advocacy, and to have the skills they need to participate in an integrated community and an integrated work environment. When we look at nationally how we're doing with individuals with autism, we can see that over half also have a co-occurring mental health issue. They tend to be anxiety or depression. Raise your hand if you have higher functioning students with autism who also have a mental health issue. I see most of the room raising their hands. And so that adds some additional things that we have to pay attention to in our education. We see here that 49% live in the home of parents or other relatives, and of these, 81% had been there over 5 years. So that's not what we want, really, is it, unless it's a personal choice. But technically, as we prepare our individuals, I think the quality of life is similar to what a lot of us want, which is to kind of go to school and be as independent as possible and be able to make choices about what we're going to do. But it appears now that our individuals with autism, if you look at this next slide, only 14% are working in the community for pay in settings that employ people without disabilities. 27% had no work or activities at all, right? So that means they're leaving us in education, living at home, not doing activities, not having friends, and not having work. And less than half of adults chose their daily schedule on their own in regard to when they woke up, ate, or went to sleep. And that means that their self-advocacy, their independence, their ability to go, I want this, I don't want this, that's not happening. And so I don't want to be Debbie Downer here today, but I think sometimes when we see these statistics and these numbers, it can inspire us. And so we have to figure out what we're going to do to improve these outcomes that we're having. So when we look at least restrictive environment in our California schools, and I do have to put a big shout out and a thank you to Kristen Wright, who's the Director of Special Ed for the California Department of Education, because they are willing to put out these numbers. You know, some departments of ed go, yeah, let's not put those out there. But she realizes we need to have a place. Where did we start? And now we're going to do active engagement on how to improve those numbers. So these are the latest numbers that we have on this. And what we see are 40.2% individuals with autism are inside the regular class less than 40% of the day. Raise your hand if you are actively including students with autism more than that number says. So some of you. It's not for the faint of heart. It does take a village and it takes effort, but we have some ideas to share with you today. We all know about the research, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to convince an audience that I believe already believes in inclusive education. But I think it's important sometimes when we have data that it helps us kind of empower other people to see that it might be effective to include students as appropriate, of course. But NTAC, which is the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition, has done some research. And what they found is, you know, when we look at individuals with autism who are particularly successful after post-secondary education, here are the indicators that were in place that helped them be so successful and independent. And inclusion is one of the top 4 predictors of post-school success. So this is some nice data, some nice research-based and evidence-based data that supports that if we do provide inclusive education for our individuals with autism, that's an indicator that will help know that they can do better than what our statistics are showing now. So what can we do? Well, a long, long time ago, Patty Shetter and I were appointed to the Legislative Blue Ribbon Commission on Autism, and a group of parents, raise your hand if you're parents of individuals with autism. So we have a parent in here. Well, a whole bunch of you got in line and wrote letters and went up to the Capitol steps in Sacramento and said, you're not doing enough for individuals with autism and their families. And so the legislature, what they do is they go, okay, well, we'll go do a Blue Ribbon Commission. So Patty Shetter and I, along with about 40 other people, studied the issue and said, yeah, you're not. And here are some recommendations that we have. Out of that grew what we call CAPTAIN. Raise your hand if you know what CAPTAIN is. So just a few of you. It's the California Autism Professional Training and Information Network. And the recommendations that we should have better interagency coordination. Parents go to the regional centers, they go to Family Resource Network. I think Helping Parents is your resource network. And the schools, and we want to get all on the same page at telling parents the same thing, that we support evidence-based, research-based practices. Here are your supports, and here's how you can be a partner in the education of your child. We said there needs to be more training in autism, and so CAPTAIN is satisfying that, to identify a set of evidence-based practices that we're going to use, and to also develop a clearinghouse, which has become the CAPTAIN website. So what is CAPTAIN? CAPTAIN is a multi-agency network comprised of the regional centers of the Family Resource Center networks of California and the schools. Our vision is to make sure everyone is using evidence-based, research-based practices. Why? Because they work, and the federal ed code and the state ed code says we're supposed to be using evidence-based practices. And our goal is to really make sure all of you who are educators or parents or anyone who interacts with individuals with autism, that they really understand what these evidence-based practices are. So what can we do in inclusive settings? We're recommending using these evidence-based practices. And we know now more than ever, there's treatments for autism is more diverse, that the claims are that there's cures or kind of amelioration or recovery. And I have to tell you, every morning before I do a presentation, I look on the internet and I try to see, has there been a cure? Has there been a cause determined? And we don't have that answer at this point. And so what we have now are these evidence-based practices. So on October 4th, I Googled autism treatment, and look what I got. 165 million hits. And then last night, as I was preparing to talk with you, I thought, I wonder what it is last night. 178 million. And so a lot of people think they can Google autism treatment or autism EBPs or whatever and come up with the list. But I'm here to tell you that basically there are two important resources that the state of California, the California Department of Education, is embracing as evidence-based, research-based practices. An evidence-based practice, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time, I really want you guys to hear the implementers over here, but they've been implementing evidence-based practices from this. And there's lots of research, and you can spend a lot of time figuring out how it was decided what these evidence-based practices are. But there had to be specialized research that was good quality research that was replicated by peers and peer-reviewed journal articles. And so what we have, here you go, not 178 million, not 165 million, but what we have are 27 evidence-based practices for autism, and here they are. Sometimes people say to me, yeah, but they were all done in clinics or in research or some little labs, and we go, well, actually, there's been a lot of research, and 23 of the 27 were actually researched and found to be efficacious in school settings. And so there's some information for you there if you get a little pushback. All of you have a copy of the evidence-based practice matrix. On the left-hand side, it has the name of the evidence-based practice. It has a short definition. And then the use of the color coding is whether or not the research said it was efficacious for a particular age group. And if we'd had a 2 or 3 hour session, we would teach you how to do this, but I'm going to give you a way to learn more about this. But basically, the green means that there was research to support it for 0 to 5. Yellow means there was research to support it for ages 6 to 14, and for blue, 18 to 22. And so it's not like, oh, I can use all 27, right? You have to select them appropriately based on the research that said it was efficacious for a particular age group. So there's free training resources for you to learn. Everything's free. Raise your hand if you're a BCBA. You guys can take this. We've called your board, and you can take these modules that are free if you choose the certificate route. And then what'll happen is you can use that for your type 2 CEUs. Are there any SLPs in the room? Okay. Well, if you were there, or if you're out in the world streaming with us today, it'll work for your ASHA CCCs, and it'll also work for your California state license renewal for CPD requirements. So these free training resources can all be found on the CAPTAIN website. And if we have time at the end of today, we'll take you on a little tour. But in the meanwhile, know that this is your actual statewide resource clearinghouse for autism in the state of California, and CAPTAIN is your statewide initiative on autism. So I'm going to introduce now Joan, who is the behavior specialist for Alameda Unified School District, and you don't have to see me very much anymore until the very end, because the implementers now are going to tell you what it really for real looks like in real life.
In real life. Thank you, Anne.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So here's a little bit about our story of how we got here. As Ann mentioned, the captain program, they also have an annual captain summit, and I'm a cadre member. So every year we would drive up to Stockton, and I would attend the annual meeting, and I would hear other cadre members share their ideas of how they're implementing and disseminating this information. And I would think, oh man, that's the best idea ever. I'm going to go back to our district. I'm going to do it. It's going to be amazing. Oh, every year I tried my little grassroots efforts, and it didn't work. And I was sitting there going, oh man, what happened? What went wrong? And then I talked to Ann, and Ann said, you need this. You need the leadership. And so that brought us to here. To here. And Ann was right. So if you're looking at this slide, most of the team members are here, but 6 out of the 9 people on this list are leadership. And in order to have the inclusion programs be successful, this is what really we needed, was that leadership team. And here comes Tanya as a leadership team to talk about her role. Do you want me to click forward?
Yeah, can you click for me?
I can click for you.
Cool. Hey, everybody. So I do have a little bit of a story. I have to tell you that I was a teacher for many years, taught kindergarten for the longest, and taught at an inclusion school, and was an inclusion teacher, so I thought. I was not implementing those 27 evidence-based practices, and once I started working with the Diagnostic Center, I quickly learned that I was doing it all wrong. So I was really excited when I started to partner with both Kara, who's going to be speaking, and Ann, and the Diagnostic Center, and getting the support from Captain. So I am the principal of Otis Elementary School, and we are home of the owls. So we love owls. They are everywhere. There's one of our owls. That's our mission. Obviously, we are trying to work collaboratively with our parents, our community members, and we're trying to create the most inclusive environment possible. So here I was as a principal, and you saw the data. Most of my children with IEPs had that autism box checked, and many of the kiddos that had the OHI box, you know, right? So I actually reached out to Kara, who is also a parent at my school, and I said, can you come and help me, please? I don't know what I'm doing. And then I met Joan and Ann, and we built this program here at our school. So we started off with 6 teachers, and Kara and Joan dedicated to the work. Next slide. So that was great, right? But we needed the commitment and the support and the dedication from district leadership to actually get this work off of the ground. It's really easy to be sitting at the district office thinking about what we should be doing to create an inclusive environment, and thinking about how we should be saving money with MPS placements, and thinking about how we should maintain compliance. But it's another thing to actually do the work on the ground. So we were blessed to have the commitment from all of these district leadership folks. And one of the requirements was that district leadership needed to be committed to meeting on a regular basis. And so we had a monthly leadership team meeting. And that was critical to the work because they got to hear what it was really like and what the needs were in order to do this effectively and actually have impact. So what did we get out of this partnership with the Diagnostic Center through the support of Captain? Wow. We got the district to dedicate time from the behavior specialist, so we got Joan's time. We got a full-time specialist on our site. And then we got ongoing coaching. So Joan continued to receive coaching as a behavior specialist. Kara continued to receive coaching as the specialist. I received coaching as a principal. So I received coaching not only as a principal to be a better principal, but also to actually understand these evidence-based practices and to know what they look like in action. our teachers got ongoing practice and coaching. We started to really dig deep into those IEPs, and we built matrix. So we actually figured out how to support students effectively in classroom, in their natural and classroom environment. And I think my most favorite is that our paraprofessionals got coaching too. We also were very transparent with our families, and so our parents were getting information on a regular basis, and you'll see a little bit of some testimonials at the end so you can see and hear their words and the impact that it had on their kids and their families. And then what we said to our teachers is we said, so here are 6 teachers participating in this pilot program, and every single one of you either has or will have a student with autism in your classroom, diagnosed or undiagnosed. There's no way around it. These are our kids. So we need to actually take the "it takes a village" motto and apply it to our school site. And so we started to share the practice with all of our teachers, not just our teachers that were in the original pilot. I think that is it for me. And now you're going to hear from Michelle, kindergarten teacher extraordinaire, who really took this to the next level.
Hi, I'm Michelle Hernandez, general education kindergarten teacher. Sorry, I'm really nervous. I can do my thing in front of 5-year-olds, but adults are a little scary. So in my classroom last year, Kara and the team really supported me by teaching me about the evidence-based practices, and then we had a few that we focused on. So we use visual supports, prompting, reinforcement, such as like a token chart, and social narratives. So, so Kara came to me. Sorry, I'm just holding like a million. So Kara came to me and she said, "Oh, here are some visuals that I made for you that you can use with your student." And so she showed them to me, and I'm like, "Oh, I could totally use that. I need this with my whole class." I had a very rambunctious class last year. And I said, "Can you make me like a bigger one?" And so here's my well-loved and tattered Quiet Voices visual that was just super effective for me last year. And what I really loved about it was that it wasn't singling out one student or the student with autism in my class. It was just an effective strategy for all of the students. And this year, I've also been using it in my classroom. And so actually, when I have the kids line up after recess, I was using it, and I did all my tricks, like, my chant, and if you could hear my voice, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't really working. They were just driving me crazy. So I was like, okay, I need something more. And I was like, well, what would Kara do? So then I was like, okay, I can't take it anymore. I need you guys to line up quietly. So then I just made my own photo visual. So I just took the photo and I blew it up so that it would, then I used both to supplement, and then now I get what I want. So it's awesome. But, and then next slide. And then another thing that we use that I've actually always had in my classroom is just a visual schedule with the icons. And some years I would make it kind of like the agenda circular, like a continuum, but for the student in my class last year, I made it more linear because that was more helpful for him. So that's just an example of my agenda. And sometimes I could put the actual times next to it of when things are happening or the objectives underneath. So.
I have a microphone on me. I think you can hear me. Hi, everyone. I'm Kara. I'm an education specialist there at Otis, and I was helping the gen ed teachers. So I'm just going to give you guys some examples of some of the things that we made for the students that really helped out. I should make sure I'm in my box here. Back to the other visual schedule, I just want to mention something really fast. So this agenda she had used previously for all of her students, and it was really effective, but we found that with our target student that he needed one smaller, portable, individualized. So because she had this already made, we just made him littler icons of the same thing. and helped him to understand what each activity meant. So just using that, that she already had made was awesome, gave us that opportunity to go ahead and build upon that. So that was really awesome, and it was actually less work because sometimes I'll come into classrooms and have to make everything from scratch. So that was really nice to have that already there, and then just make the individualized schedule for the student. But we also use other kinds of schedules, such as some students needed like a morning routine. They didn't know how to enter the classroom appropriately or at all. So we needed to set it up a little checklist. So we're going to have a little checklist of a little booklet that was of the morning routine. So it had exactly the steps that he needed to do to get into the class. So for example, unzip his backpack, take out your lunch, put it in the appropriate place, then hang up your jacket and backpack. So breaking down all of the steps and giving it to him in a visual way helped him to complete entering into the room. But then we said, oh, that's not enough. He's got this down. Now we need to have the rest of the gen ed setting. This is their gen ed schedule. He had to do an exit ticket, which was part of the math curriculum. Then he had to check his schedule after that, and then he could ask for a star. So giving it to him like a mini task schedule laid out like that simplified it for him, it lessened his anxiety. He was able to go ahead and come into class and know what was expected and do it independently, which was the key, because previously we had a para who was kind of like motoring him through all these things. Well, he knew how to do it. He just didn't know what was next. So having that para step back, giving him these visual tools, he was then able to do it himself. No one had to help him. So that was really useful for us to see his growth in that sense. Oh yeah, I'll start passing some of these visuals around so you guys can flip through them. Some of them have been modified or not super, for different kids, so just so you know. And then these are some of the examples of the portable schedules that we made. So the two that you see here, that top one correlates with Ms. Hernandez's kindergarten student. And like I said, it was just exactly the same icons, and we'd set up his schedule before he came in, just like she would set up her own. And then that way he could anticipate what was next. So then he would remove it, just like our schedules outside of our door. I don't know if anyone noticed that coming in, but I was really super excited about that. So it tells us all where we're going, what's next in our agenda. We all use some people use planners. I use calendars at work and things like that. So this helped him realize, like, oh, there's an end to my day, thank God. It's not all just something. There's an end, right? And he needed to know what was happening. And he had those breaks at lunch, and he had specials and things that he had to make sure that he was going to be able to manage his day. He knew it was going to come to an end eventually. And then the lower one was some kids needed a combo of icons and actual pictures. So we kind of modified it based on the kid's understanding of what was expected, or what he understood, rather. So if the kid understood icons, something that represented something, then we would use that. If they needed actual pictures, then we'd take an actual picture of them actually doing that work. So it really just was kid dependent. And then I brought one to share. This one was used for an older student who didn't need such giant icons. It's more smaller, portable, less stigmatizing. So not carrying this giant thing around is kind of nice. So I'll start it right here, and you guys can just check it out. It's just a little example. And then for the older students, we had a written schedule, so some kids could read and could comprehend what that word means. Now, I wouldn't necessarily use a written schedule for everyone. You have to make sure that they understand what that means, what recess, that word actually means. Of course, they probably know that one. What reading means, what science means. And so then he could check it off as he goes. And that's all he needed to be successful, and he could follow that schedule. And that was based off of one that was set for him to come in the class, and then he could write it down and check it off as he went. Go ahead. And just like, oh no, I didn't, oh yes, I did. So just like the small morning schedule that you just saw up there, we've made work schedule or mini task schedules for a variety of different things. For this one particular student, he needed things really set out for him. It was very hard for him to participate in something as simple as a community circle where everyone was sitting around, or like the pledge. So we needed to pair it with some reinforcement, right? And so in order for him to do that, we needed those tasks broken down. So stand, the first thing, stand with the class. That was his first check off. Then he got a reinforcement for that. And then read the pledge with the class. Then he got a reinforcement. So it was very tough for him. That's why we paired it with such a high rate of reinforcement. But it was important for him because he needed to have those steps broken down. And then he was able to participate, again, without a para sitting right next to him or prompting, verbally telling him every second, oh, stand up with everyone, or go stand over there, or make sure you say too much verbalizations. And so the visual really helped him just follow it on his own and not need that person to tell him every 2 seconds what was next. And so, and then also on the other side, I brought the example, but this is how we would break down like work tasks for him. So if he was like, oh, we have this giant work assignment. I have no idea how long it's going to take me. I don't know what I need to do to get started. So she would tell him what work was involved, and then how much work, like what stuff do I have to do, right? Is it a worksheet? Is it reading first? Is it writing something? And then he could check it off on his own. And then how does he know he's done? How do I know I'm finished when all of the check mark boxes are checked off? And then what happens after that? So it's not just this open-ended, then I get up and wander around the room. No, he has some really specific things that he can do when he's done. So I'll start this one over here. You can go and click. More mini task schedules. So we have a student here who would come into the classroom, just like I spoke about the other student, come into the classroom and he'd wander around. There was no like, oh, my chair, I have to sit down, I have to put my backpack away. He didn't understand any of that. So we had to take very specific pictures of him completing the task and showing him what we were expecting him to do. Once I made this, I handed it to him one day, and I didn't teach it to him yet, but I just handed it to him so he could look at it and see that he was, in this picture book, and I kind of wanted to start with him just looking at it, and all of a sudden he grabbed all of his things and he started doing what was on. He started flipping it. He could read, but he needed that visual representation also to like cue him in. So he just started flipping it, and I just got out my camera just at the very tail end. So I didn't have a really good video to show of him like independently using it, but I didn't really have to teach him. He just was like, where has this been all my life? Like, this is what I needed. How come you didn't give me this sooner? So it was really exciting and motivating to see him use that so quickly. And the same for the afternoon. He was kind of forgetting things at school and didn't know how to pack up his bag and get ready to leave the room. He didn't say goodbye to his teacher, and one time his teacher's like, I have no idea where he went, it turns out he had left because, the kids were being dismissed, but he didn't say goodbye or indicate in any way that he was done and leaving. So we had to add that into his little finish, say goodbye to your teacher, say goodbye to a friend, or, whatever, as part of his routine. And then from then on, she knew always when he left because he would make sure he said goodbye. So that helped him to be more independent as well. And just stop me if it's not my turn, because I'm not following on my. Okay, so the visual supports EBP, helping students to be independently engaged. So this little card was made specifically for a student who was checked out during a specific subject. And so we were trying to get him to simply look at the teacher as a first step. And so he liked My Little Ponies. So My Little Ponies was motivating for him. So if he, I think it was every minute or something, if we looked up and he was looking at the teacher, we gave him circle to My Little Pony. Once he got to the end, then he got something. Yeah. So we just made him based on what the need was. So that was just the start of him attending. And then we made these for all of the paras and gen ed teachers who are involved in the project. I think that Ms. Hernandez would say, when she asked me for it, I've never really had a gen ed teacher be like, can you please make me some of that so I don't have to hear my own voice? But it's true. Then you're not talking and repeating yourself over and over again. And I think this helps for reminding teachers that less verbal, more visual is better. You're not repeating yourself every 5 seconds. You're not exhausting your voice. You're using visuals to represent what you would like or what you expect of the class. So that's why I was thrilled that she made her own lineup card. That's taking it to the next level, right? She realized that she had a need. So, but anyway, we've given these to all the teachers and the support staff so that they can use it with all the students. And I think it's been effective with all the kids. Next step. like yard duty and extraneous staff. It's in the works. I'll start it here. Excuse me, sorry. These two are, can I have some of my water really bad?
Let me do my organization, get some water. Okay, so these were, we walked into a classroom and we noticed that the students' desks were just not very organized. Our targeted student and other students as well. So we just quickly made just a checklist of my organized desk. What does it need to look like? Where do your books need to go? Where do your folders need to go? And then we took a picture of it so they could have that visual so they could just match at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, they had to make sure that their desk before they left looked like this. Here, you want to add anything to that? Your full? All right. The getting ready, are you ready to learn checklist with me? Because a lot of times you have teachers, come in the box with me, Sarah. You have teachers who say, are you ready? Get the students ready. But for our students, a lot of times they have a hard time of knowing, well, what does ready mean? What does that look like? So we made just a checklist of what those steps are. So then, once again, if they had staff, teacher, parents supporting them, instead of using those verbal prompts, which we know are the hardest to fade, they could just kind of point like this. So that was that visual reminder of what they needed.
Thank you. Sorry.
You're welcome.
So like I talked about before, the quiet voices signal was really effective to use that with my whole classroom and not singling students out. We can go ahead and actually go to the next. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Another thing that Kara made for me, where did she go? Oh, she's outside. So I had a student, or the student I had last year who she was working with, he would sneeze a lot and then kind of just like wipe his nose, you know, the way little kids wipe them without a tissue or anything. So she helped me make these hygiene stations in my room, in two different spots. So it really lays out all the steps for him of like, okay, if I sneeze and I have stuff coming out of my nose, what can I do to help myself? And so it was actually something that all the kids in the class used as well, and something that all of the kids as kindergartners needed help learning how to do. So that was really cool too. I will just say one thing. I know they're not kind of done talking about all of the strategies that we've been using at Otis, but this is my last time up here. So I just wanted to put one thing out there, that this whole experience and being part of this has been really powerful for me as a teacher. It's my 14th year of teaching, and so I can't believe I went more than a decade without knowing about all of these things. I could have done a lot better, I guess. But the most powerful thing is that I just feel like all of these tools and strategies from the evidence-based practices is really about teaching students building that self-reliance. And it's not about, oh, well, that student really needs that to work with that paraprofessional or to have that specific teacher. It's not about that. It's about the student having the tools and the strategies that they need to become self-reliant.
Okay. I'm going to give this another try here. Sorry, I have a cold. So this is another station that I set up in another classroom. A student that was new to me actually joined the class, and the first day of school, we didn't know she was coming, as probably is pretty common. And so I went in there and observed a little bit, thank you. And I saw her sneeze, and she wiped all her, into both the sides of her hair. And I said, oh, geez, I have a great idea. Let's put this visual on there. So this is actually in effect in their classroom as well now. And it's just another way to lay it out, the step-by-step process, so that she knew what to do. Last year we worked with a second grade class who used this morning routine to help all of the kids. It was there for everybody, not just our student, and it helped, see that check off, the kids can follow it and know exactly what's expected for her students. And then we implemented a lot of visual supports as reminders in a lot of the gen ed classrooms, such as quiet voice, raising your hand, hands and feet to self, things like that. And the teacher actually ended up referring to it for a lot of the students, not just our target student. And so I think it was really, really helpful to have that visual there. She didn't have to keep saying the same thing over and over again. And then Miss Harris came to me and she said, Kara, I need a schedule. And so she saw all the schedules that were being made for all the students. I said, oh, okay, I can make you a schedule. Because oftentimes she's gone or doing things around the campus. So I know you can't really read it very well, but it's just basic. So does she have classroom visits? Is she visiting classrooms? Is she on lunch duty? Is she in a meeting, off campus, in the media center, or on the blacktop or Bark Park? And then she moves the little red button to where she is so that students can find her and everyone sort of knows where she is at all times. And this is a bunch of things. So we talked a lot about visual supports. Now we're going to kind of shift over into reinforcement. I mentioned a couple of times when I was talking about the visual supports how we pair it with some types of reinforcement. Depending on the need of the student, they might need it more or less. But these are the types of reinforcement that we use. So the top one is probably a lot of people are familiar with. It's a token board or star chart, whatever you want to call it. They earn based on doing something or completing tasks. And when they get to the end, they earn whatever they've chosen at the top. And then on the left here is what our district uses as a reinforcer survey. So it's not necessarily going to be the same thing that they want twice. They might want something completely different the next time or day to day. So we always want to make sure we have a list of things that they do like and then offer them. One thing might be motivating one day and they wouldn't care about it the next day. So we always want to have a list of things to draw from when we're talking about giving kids motivation. This is what we refer to because this is going to tell us what they're motivated to earn and work for. In the bottom, one of my students just really liked the positive praise, so we wrote it on tickets instead of saying it, and whenever he was doing a good job, we just hand him a ticket. And he really just needed that to keep himself going. And this is what our school uses. They're called hoot hoots, and kids get them for following the school rules. So we actually made them for our staff as well. So we were training all the staff members in the EBPs, expecting a lot more from them as paraprofessionals. And we learned that quickly that we need to actually start giving them some positive feedback because we need some buy-in. And they were working hard and harder than ever, and learning all these new things is tough. So we made these hoot hoots that are for the staff members, and it was, you got caught using evidence-based practices. And then which ones, use visuals, positive reinforcement, prompting, moved away, and then, tell your other students about it. And so then they'd go into a drawing and they'd win a Starbucks card or something. So to keep them, motivated and on track, because learning new things is hard when you've been doing it for a long time. I think that they need a little extra motivation as well. Am I still just going? I'm just going. So on the left is one of the examples of a visual schedule that we used for a student. On the top was his token board. So he had to earn 10 stars for whatever he was earning. And then on the inside was his schedule, similar to what I passed around, but not exactly. And he had more pages, and he also had a choice menu of things that he could do when he needed to get out of the classroom for a minute. So some kids will put the choice on his actual schedule so that he knows, oh, in this amount of time, I'm going to get to take a little walk break or do some chair push-ups or that sort of thing. And that helped him to okay, I know this is coming. I can relax. And then he could visually choose which one he wanted without having to tell us. He could just choose visually. Okay, go ahead. Oh, yes. So then also we found a lot of our students have trouble with recess and unstructured times. So we made a visual schedule, or a visual choice board really, for recess. And so we went out and took actual pictures of all the things that are possible during our recess time. And then we don't usually overload it like this. We'll usually put 3 on there for the front, and then the student has to choose for at least a portion of their recess to do that activity. So I'll pass that one around too. Thank you for reminding me. I'm holding it. Okay, so here's some examples of social narratives. So we've discussed visual supports, and we didn't talk a whole lot about prompting, but we talked about reinforcement. Social narratives were really helpful for our kids with autism because they gave them realistic things. Oh, we have the same one, okay. We usually try to bring different ones, but different social situations, kids, they don't interpret it the same as other kids. So sometimes they need a little bit of assistance to review. This is an evidence-based practice, so we've used this. It's keep cool, it's no big deal for a few different kids. Just reminding them to breathe and relax, and it's not a big deal. We try to teach them between big deal, little deal, and how their reaction is measured against that. So this is one of them. And then we also made a power card for one of the students who liked My Little Ponies, and it was to help him remember strategies such as when I'm learning or doing my work, I can say, instead of saying I give up, I can say I can do this, or I can accept help. So that was a tough thing for our student. So having that power card on his desk, he could read that and be like, oh yeah, I can ask for help and have someone help me. That's awesome. So what's that? We also made him that too. And we also made him this one, the social story that went along with that, which was that I can accept help and learn new things. So he had trouble accepting the help from the teacher. That was the key. So that helped him learn. I don't know where I'm at now. I'll show you guys that one. Go ahead. Give my voice a break.
Are you getting the theme of all? So all of these things were originally created for target students, and then all of a sudden we were like, whoa. All of our kids are benefiting from this. Oh, I need a social story for him. Can I borrow that recess board for her? And like I said earlier, we were saying to our staff, you probably have somebody in your classroom who could benefit from these supports. You probably have somebody with autism. You will have someone with autism. But we also didn't want to be like, hey guys, we're going to do one more new thing. So we are a Pbis school. We have dedicated the last 3 years to rolling out Pbis with fidelity. And we had this huge aha moment. Actually, that's not true. What happened was Anne said, oh, by the way, you're already doing this because you're a Pbis school. So we had a little bit of scaffolding with that aha moment. So what we realized was that we weren't doing anything new. But what we were doing with our evidence-based practices could now be intentionally rolled out with a Pbis lens. And so right here, and this is on the Captain website, I'm sure most of you are working in Pbis school communities. So you can find this on the website. And what it is it's a matrix that demonstrates the evidence-based practices are aligned with Pbis expectations, which is pretty awesome. So talk about getting a lot of buy-in from my whole staff. So we do the 3 Bs, be safe, be kind, be your best. And so one of the things that we really wanted to do, we have little kids. We have kids with autism. We have kids that are learning to read. We have kids that really struggle with reading. So the visuals are super effective for so many kiddos. Here's an example of how we are doing this with a Pbis lens and rolling it out school-wide. So if you come to our school, you'll see the expectations everywhere. And then you'll see this. Stop, Otis owls are safe by following these rules for recess all over our school sort of windows. The quick story is, since we're Pbis, we collect data. We realized that there was a lot of craziness happening in the hallways, and kids were constantly coming in for Band-Aid or ice pack or forgot their jacket. And so and then they were running around the halls and in classrooms. So we created this. And so basically, you have to have a pass to go in the hallway. You get a pass from somebody with a yellow fanny pack. Oh, wait, you need a Band-Aid? We got it for you. And so, and then this last one is interesting. If you're thirsty, get some water, do it quickly. At the time, our school's strange. At the time, on one side of the playground, you could only get water if you went into the building, even at recess. So, that's a setup, right? But with this visual, we got this under control. So this is really, now we have no uh-oh data indicating hallway shenanigans. So it's great. Yeah, that's that. What else? This is an example of being being safe, being kind, and being your best in the bathroom. So this is what we tell them to do, but again, not everybody can read, right? And so we have visuals. This is how you do bathroom at Otis in a PBIS way. So I guess I should probably, Anne's probably thinking, tell a story about the airport. So when I first met Anne and I heard her talk, she told this story about how visuals help everybody, right? And she talked about being in an airport. So say that you are flying abroad and you land in an airport and you don't speak the language. How do you know where to go? How do you know where to find your bags? How do you get a taxi? There's visuals everywhere. That was my aha moment. I was like, whoa, right? I totally need visuals. And there's the story. I was like blown away. Like, wow, UDL. Okay, next slide. Okay, another example. We love at Otis, seriously, we love that quiet icon. We love it. The kids call it the potato head, but we love it. So we have expectations for the hallway stair area, and we expect kiddos to walk, and we expect them to use appropriate voices. What does that mean, appropriate voice? I don't know. Oh, wait. There's this thing called the voice volume scale, which is one of the evidence-based practices. You probably have all seen it. We were like, we love that. So now, every single classroom has the voice volume scale. Every area throughout the school has the voice volume scale. And so when you walk down the hallways, you can be at a level 1 to 2, and you are reminded every step of the way. And it's awesome. You walk into a classroom and they'll be like, we're going to do Think, Pair, Share, voice volume 2. And the kids know. Or I'll be like, hey, I see you walking in the hallway. What voice volume should you use? And they go, 1.5. So even the kids are speaking the language. All right, next slide. This is how we do school-wide reinforcement. And for some of our kiddos with autism, this is it. They love the hoot, hoot, hoorays. And some need a little bit more, or some hoot, hoot, hoorays. Like you get 5 stars, you get a hoot, hoot, hooray, and you get like 3 hoot, hoot, hoorays in a day. You get to go to the prize box. So, we mix it up depending on what, what the kids are interested in. Okay, again, we love the quiet icon. We also love Miss Hernandez. So she's highlighted a lot. This is her. And this story, Kara, this is the story where you were just...
I just happened to catch this.
She just happened to catch Michelle walking to the library. So what's really funny is Michelle walks with her sign, and she's got like the hoot hoots in the other hand, and she's like waving the hoot hoots and the sign and walking backwards like, who's getting the hoot hoot? It's really funny. And so Kara just was walking out of the copy room and caught this. It's not the greatest. It's with her iPhone and it was not planned, so, but you get the gist. She's pretty awesome walking backwards on that line too, right? Talented. And there are her apples and oranges, or apples and bananas, whatever her line is called that week, walking quietly into the library. And all she's doing is holding her sign and waving her hoot hoots around. All right. Okay, so one of the things that we are working on as a district, it's a little, takes some time to implement some of these more provocative protocols. So we are working on a walkthrough tool for administrators. And so again, going back to what I said earlier, when I started to work with this organization and learn through the support of Kara and Joan, one of the things that I needed to work on was, what do I look for in a classroom? What are the best practices? What does the environment look like? What are the interactions supposed to be looking like? I don't know for sure if I would have known that the verbal prompting was the hardest to fade and where we needed to intervene with our support staff. I would not have thought anything of the helicopter model where the pair is kind of like hand over hand doing everything for the kid. I don't know if I would have thought that wasn't right, but now I know what to look for. So this is a work in progress. This is great because it also helps our district leadership folks, not just me, one principal in a school district, but district leadership understand what to look for in classrooms when they walk through with me. And the one thing that we're going to try this year in our second year is actually to show this to our teachers who are participating with us and to kind of do a self-assessment. How are these things showing up in your classroom? What is your environment looking like? How are you creating conditions to build independence? And one of the great things that will inevitably happen is there'll be some validation, and then validation leads to buy-in and interest. Oh wait, guess what we love? We love the quiet voice. And I actually love the voice volume icon. That's our favorite. Oh, look, there's me with my yellow fanny pack. So this is me at lunch duty. And I'm outside with 600 kids, sometimes by myself. And I got to dismiss them to various places. And we took our visuals to the next level. So we actually have pictures of all of our teachers. So in kindergarten, especially the first couple of weeks, you're like, Mrs. Hernandez's class, please line up. And they're like, who? What's, huh? And so I just was holding up a picture of the teacher. Is this your teacher? Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's me dismissing Miss McKenna's class. I did not know that picture was being taken. Oh, wait, there's me again. Guess what I'm holding? Is Michelle in there? She should be. She's somewhere in there. So this is a fire drill. We're a Pbis school, so we collect a lot of data. So we had this data that our kids were a little bit rambunctious going out for fire drills. And so we were like, what do we do? Well, we probably should teach them what we are expecting. And we should be doing some reinforcing. And so what did we decide to do? We decided that everybody was going to have the quiet icon. And so when we take our kids out for fire drills or whatever drills, all of the teachers are holding up the quiet icon. We also have Monday morning gatherings. And so now every Monday morning, most of the teachers are holding up the quiet icons. And I say, voice volume 1, please. And they know what to do. We just had our last fire drill a couple weeks ago, and here she comes with the quiet sign and the line up sign. We were like, wait, what? You didn't tell us we had a line up sign. So now everybody wants Kara to make the line up sign. So when I say everybody, I mean we have 28 teachers. Every one of our teachers has these visuals in their classrooms. The quiet sign, the voice volume sign, the whatever, I mean, it's no eating for our peanut-free rooms. Whatever a class might need, those visuals are now in there. And again, we had 6 teachers participating at the beginning of last year. So while we may have target students in target classrooms, every one of our classrooms is participating and supporting students through visuals and social narratives and reinforcement and prompting. All right, and here's Kara.
Thank you. Oh, you don't need that. Okay, so this little picture is just an example that I found really awesome. I was in an assembly with students. For some reason, all of the kinder teachers were not there. I don't know what happened or what was going on. Maybe they had PD. Anyways, this one, we had an assembly. There were like 3 kinder subs, and I just happened to be observing one of my students, seeing how he was doing in the assembly, and I walk in, and everything's like discombobulated. Kids are everywhere. It's one of our soul shop assemblies, so the kids, they end up dancing at the end of it, and it was just like kids were everywhere. So I was like, okay, let me see what I can do. And I had my rule cards on, and I just pulled out the one that says line up. And so I was just holding the lineup sign, and all of Michelle Hernandez's kids started coming over because they're used to using this. And I go, oh my, like, they're coming over here. Like, I didn't say one word. I said nothing. I'm just in here, and all these kids are busy doing, and they all of a sudden see me, and they're like, okay, I know this. Like, I'm going to come and get in line. So they come and get in line. And so then I told, it was a perfect opportunity to model for my para who was in there supporting one of the students. I said, take this, go over there, and show them where to stand and line up. And then, so then I just took a little picture of her getting all the kids lined up. And so she wasn't hovering with her student. She was now directing the entire class and taking a little bit more leadership and ownership of the whole class rather than being planted right next to another kid. So I felt like that was a great opportunity for me to model, but also for her to learn in these situations. Go right ahead and step up and, you know, use these visual supports for the other kids because they're gonna understand it too. So that was really exciting for me to just go in there and see that. And I was really surprised and shocked that everyone just started coming over to me. I thought it was like magic, you know. So visuals. Okay, that one's it.
Oh, it's me. Okay. So we can sell our show to you and be really excited about it, but what do people that are really doing the work say? So this is from one of our paraprofessionals. These are her words. ATAP has fostered impactful partnerships between SPED students and teachers that have resulted in tremendous growth with executive functioning, social skills, and cognitive development. That's how our paraprofessionals are feeling about the work that they're doing. And that's what they're seeing in terms of their students' growth. Okay, so this picture came before this quote. The story is, I was in this particular kiddo's classroom, just visiting. I know that this, and they were doing writing, and I know this kiddo has a writing goal. So I walk over to him and I say, you know, hey, what are you writing? And he says, not now, Miss Harris. I'm not finished. I need you to come back. And I say, okay. Meanwhile, I'm looking at his desk, and if you look closely, you can see his token board and his schedule and all that. What do you not see? You don't see his paraprofessional. She's in the room somewhere. She's not with him. But I look down and I see he's got a page and a half of writing. But I back away because he tells me I have to come back. So then I get a quote from his mom. Prior to ATAP at Otis, Thomas was anxious, overwhelmed, and not accessing the curriculum. He hated school. He would often be found in one area of the room just walking in circles. One year at back to school night, we opened his journal, and there was nothing in it, but we knew he was capable of writing. Once we started working with ATAP, he had specific goals and strategies for reaching them. The goals were manageable for him. He is now participating in the curriculum that everyone else is doing, and he's showing independence. It gives me comfort knowing that he feels success. So 2 days later, I mosey on up to that classroom, and his para says, thank God, he has been looking for you. And so I sit down, and Thomas reads me his story about his weekend with his family at the Lindsay Wildlife Museum, where he saw this animal and that animal and made a friend and had a picnic and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. This is a kid that had nothing in his journal the year before. Makes you want to cry, right? Yeah, I know. I did, actually. Okay. All right, and then Joan has resources.
This is just one of our favorite great resources. If you ever wanted to do an inclusion lesson on what is autism with a classroom, this is a great one. It doesn't even mention the word autism. It talks about it as a sixth sense. So you have your 5 senses, and your 6th one is your social sense. So it's just kind of a great one, and it's done by Carol Gray.
First, I would appreciate if you would give them a round of applause. Thank you. I've had a very long and storied career as an autism specialist, and I've had the opportunity all these years to coach and provide technical assistance. But this has been the highlight of my career. Not that the others haven't been amazing and wonderful, but this group in particular really were responsive. We used all the implementation science practices by learning along the way that we have to incorporate the leadership team. So first meetings that I had was with the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, principals, and everyone at the table to go. And these guys laugh because I sit there and I go, here's what this is going to take. Either you do that or I'm not coming. And I get to say that as an external coach or provider. But you can do that too when you go in and you talk about how you want to implement inclusive education and best practices, and knowing that all the tools and resources and evidence-based practices we use for students with autism, as you can see all along the way, are actually helpful for all students. For example, the incredible 5-point scale, that vocal volume, there's lots of research that it's also effective for students with ADHD who have vocal volume issues. And so all of these can be used. They actually, what we use them for autism is they've been specifically researched to have evidence and support and efficacy for students with autism, but it doesn't mean they can't be effective for all students, and that's where you build it and they will come. And I think the fun part is Ms. Hernandez would be using something and these other teachers go, I want one of those, and I go, Kara, go make that 8.5 by 11. And she would, I don't know how you did it, but she even got it laminated like in 10 minutes. But sometimes the immediacy of the request and the response and giving it to those is really, really helpful. I'm going to spend about 2 minutes going over the Captain website because you guys are all going, wow, this is good stuff. How do I learn about it? So I'm just going to go over the Captain website for 5 minutes, and we purposefully kept 15 minutes for you guys to ask questions, either out in the world of California or wherever you're streaming from, or from in here. So be thinking of your questions, and I'm going to pull up the Captain website here, and you guys can pull it up too on your devices. It's okay. So I think I'm going to need, Joan, will you hold my microphone for me? Okay, and then I'm just going to kind of go here. Am I still in the box? You guys are going to look at the website. They're not on the microphone. Yeah, you have to do this. Okay, so here's the Captain website. This is your statewide clearinghouse for the California Department of Ed for all things autism. When I went to my tech people, I drew a picture and I said, I want it like Nordstrom because I can just kind of go there and find exactly what I want, really super easy, and I don't like it cluttered. And so they actually satisfied me and my requests. So if you want to know what are EBPs for autism, the first quick link will take you to the world of the research that looked at peer-reviewed journal articles from 1957 all the way to 2012, and they're now really looking at what the EBPs are from subsequent research that's been happening from 2012 to 2018. Here's the other research group that looked at the evidence-based practices, and their findings were pretty much the same. And so you can go here and find and read all about those EBPs, but just trust that the 27 we gave you are the ones. So here's the important one, the Affirm Learning modules, where you guys can go and for free. Every one of those 27 evidence-based practices, there's an online learning module. And what we did with our group is everyone on this team, including the para-educators, this became their professional development. Let's start with, where do you start? Everybody always asks us. Let's just start with visual supports. So pull up the visual supports. Everybody takes it. On Wednesday afternoons, it was a shortened day with Kara, and she trained her paras. This became the foundation of the training. Let's do it. And they really loved it. And some would come back to Kara and go, oh, I went ahead and did reinforcement, prompting, and tasking. And I was like, okay, go for it, girl. So you get certificates. What we've tried to do also is have departments of ed or the county office or whoever decides that you guys can get money for continuing education to prove to them that this is solid and for real and should count toward, your raise increase. And so we encourage you to do that. That's kind of an incentive. It's actually developed by the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, so it's really vetted for that. And as I said, licensure for the state of California validates it for speech and language. BCBAs get credit, so it's for real. I wanted to show you the Captain resources, everything we talked about here today, that administrator walkthrough, all that's here. We share everything freely because we're just so darn passionate about making sure everybody has access to this. This is one of my favorite things. It's called the Autism Fact Sheets, and it's, I'm going to stand up for a minute so people don't go, what's she doing? The fact sheets are from the Centers for Disease Control, and so the information that's being imparted about autism is legitimate and factual and research-based. But raise your hand if you kind of interact with families who English maybe isn't their first language. I'm guessing everybody in this room in California will raise their hand. So here are fact sheets that the Centers for Educational Excellence at the University of Southern California, who are our partners, they have come up with the fact sheets translated in other languages. Raise your hand if you're on an IEP team that determines eligibility. Yeah, wouldn't it be wonderful if you had to sit there and maybe their pediatrician or the outside people haven't told them their child has autism and you guys go, hey, guess what? We're going to check the autism box. How wonderful would it be to have a fact sheet in their language when they hear something like that, which is, going to be a big deal to hear as a parent. So I just wanted to kind of click on one of these. Here's one just in Arabic. And you can see that there it is. You can print it out. There's, all kinds of languages. There's Mandarin, there's Cantonese, there's just all kinds. So I think you should find one. Somebody always stumps me on this, but they're working on it. But you can see Farsi, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Spanish. So we have a lot of the languages that are in our California schools that are on that. And again, this is all free. If you want to know, because see, what happened is Joan is a member and a captain cadre of the California Autism Professional Training and Information Network, known as Captain, of which I am the co-coordinator. And so she came up to me, as she said, in one of our summits, and she goes, I want to do something like that. And I was at the Diagnostic Center at the time. Now I only oversee your autism initiative for California. And I go, oh, okay. Well, it's always good when somebody asks instead of me going around, do you want me to help you? And they're like, oh, no, I don't think so. So Joan was enthusiastic, but she's a part of the California Autism Professional Training and Information Network. And every SELPA, 96% of the 134 SELPAs in California have representatives that participate. So they were nominated by their SELPA director. So we have about 400 individuals who are your autism specialists in your SELPAs. And their requirement for staying in good stead as a member of Captain is they have to provide a training on autism, an overview. They have to provide 3 trainings, one each, on evidence-based practices, whichever one they want. And they also have to provide coaching and technical assistance to 3 teachers. And so you may find out who your Captain cadre are and say, hey, Ann said you're supposed to do this. Raise your hand if you know who your Captain cadre person is. Okay, good. I told Foster City, San Mateo, I just told you guys right before we started that it's Alicia Young. But I know a lot of them, but you all have one. Every SELPA does, except probably for 4. And if you're one of the 4, I can help you get support from the surrounding area. Because Joan was just hired as part of our SELPA Content Lead grant in California to be a regional implementation lead. So all of the SELPAs, even the 4 that aren't able to participate, are going to be receiving technical assistance and support on how to implement evidence-based practices. But all you do is go here to Captain Cadre, you click on it, it's going to give you an Excel spreadsheet, and then what you can do is you can look up who your person is in your area, their name and their email will be there, and what SELPA they're in, and you can just send them an email. And you're more than welcome to say, Ann England, I saw her talk today, and she said I could send you an email and ask for support. they're expecting it. I have to tell you, I'm so lucky that, everybody who's part of Captain is so excited to be a part of it. How many of you work with older students? Okay. All the evidence-based practices are evidence-based practices, but we also have worlds for preschool and toddlers. Raise your hand if you work with the little ones. So what they've done is they've created website worlds of these evidence-based practices because people just don't like to dive through stuff that's not relevant to them. So we have the Toddler Autism Initiative, and what you can do is you can go there and get all kinds of information about those evidence-based practices for those little ones, and you don't have to wade through things for other kids who are at other ages. And then this one's exciting. This one is for our older students, and it's the Center on Secondary Education for Students with Autism, and it's still the same evidence-based practices. It's just got stuff for you guys who are working with older individuals with autism on there. So there's your Captain website, supposed to be one-stop shopping. One other way that you can learn, and this is a free online course in autism that we developed at the UC Davis. Patty Shutter, who's the co-coordinator, has developed this. This is good for credit. You can either pay $49 to get a certificate and really use it for like continuing ed or saying, hey, I took this online course, or you could just take it for free and do that. But this will tell you really what we believe as Captain and your statewide initiative on autism, what our evidence-based practices and what we should be doing in our schools and in our communities with our individuals. So now is your chance to pick their brains for the next 10 minutes about everything they said. How did you do this, or how did you do that, or what did you do about that? So please tell me who has a question, who has a burning question. And either from the streaming audience, do I have a list, from the universe somewhere else? Does anybody have any questions about how to do this? Okay, we have to, are you going to do a runner?
Well, I need to.
It's more a comment. I just want to say how amazing it is to see how it started as a small pilot, and then the whole school adopted it, so it became like part of the school culture. So I think that was another reason why it's so successful. So I just want to say that seems really amazing that you got that kind of support, and then from the admin. So I don't really have a question. I just was like that. And then it's good for all the children. That was a big part of it, that these are strategies are good for all kids.
Thank you.
Just let me know if you want it. It's on.
I have a comment and a question. I really want to do a shout out to leadership. As an administrator in my district, I know how hard it is if leadership is not on the bandwagon with you. So there's something to say about the people at the back in the district office also for this initiative. The question I have is just a hands-on question. You said your title was educational specialist, so I'm thinking you're for the school, isn't it? So you do have other roles that you have to play in terms of your educational specialist work. Can you just give us like a little snapshot of what it took for you in terms of time management to make all of this, like all the little things, because these things are very time consuming. I understand what it is for us. We have to go down to the district resource center and make sure that the laminator is working and crank all these things out. So I just have like absolutely, it's been sitting in my head. If you could just shed some light on that.
Yeah, sure. So when I first started making materials, I had, a lot of time. I first came into this school and I just started belting some things out. But what I realized is, yes, time management is very, very important. But the fact that how much these visuals support the students in their goals and inclusive ways was so much more important to me than, all the other little menial things. So I got myself a laminator. I bought myself some laminating sheets. I got a color printer. I made it so that I can do it one-stop shop. I'm not outsourcing to people because I don't want to wait. I'm impatient. Plus, then when teachers come to me and they say, hey, I really could use something for this. Do you have any thoughts? And I'm back to my office doing it for them in the moment. When they get it, it's so much more meaningful for them. Oh, yes, that's exactly what I need. Thank you. I'm going to use it right now. And they buy in so much quicker than if, do you think you can make me this? And then I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll get to that. And then, 2 weeks later it shows up and they're like, oh, I forgot why I even asked that, for that. So having it ready at the go, I think, was super important for buy-in. And so it was really important for me to get it to them as soon as they were asking or as soon as I noticed a need. And, just trying to tie up all my loose ends, seeing other students for SAI and things, that's all part of my job, right? So it has been tough, but since I've seen such a great impact, we have some really meaningful success stories in how these visual supports and all these EBPs have influenced these students' lives. The student we saw up there, Thomas, the year before I came, he was really wandering around a lot and wasn't able to access anything, like the mom said. And, I didn't see that part of him at all because I came in and we started doing this stuff and he was benefiting from the visuals. I was like, look, this, he's doing great. What do you mean? I had no idea that Thomas existed. And so seeing that success from where he was and what everyone was telling me to the Thomas we know now, I mean, how can you not make stuff for them? How can you not make that a priority over everything else? So I think it's just prioritizing my time and seeing the meaningful benefit in the moment and in the gen ed classrooms that's helped me.
And part of my role as the external coach or technical assistance provider is when I did sit down with the leadership, I said, here's what it's going to take. It's not going to cost a lot of money. We need a printer, color printer cartridges. We need, it was like we made the list before we engaged, and it really does get back to the leadership. And as Tanya talked about that, when we met as a leadership team, issues did come up. Some of the barriers and some of the challenges that we were facing actually came up as well. Like, okay, I'm worried about Kara. She's a little busy. So, stepping in to go, what does she need to be effective at her job? Can I just say one thing? Yeah.
And I'll just add one thing as the principal. Because I have prioritized this for my school and because it is a huge part of our school culture, I have made it a priority to align my resources to support the work. And so if you look at my SIPSA, my SIPSA reflects resources dedicated to this work. If you look at my PTA budget is reflective of this work. If you look at my Equity and Inclusion Committee work, this work is reflected. And if you talk to my SSC, you will know that this work is reflective. And so really the alignment of resources is critical.
Any other questions? We have 4 more minutes.
I have one comment.
A comment.
Yeah, I just want to add a comment about the social stories, which were great. The Inclusion Collaborative has over 100 social stories that you have free access to if you email the warm line. We have 6 to 7 super student social stories, like on substitutes, on behavior, and many other things. But there are over 100, and if you email the warm line, we will give them to you for free. Thank you.
Here's my email.
You can find it on the Inclusion Collaborative webpage.
It's
on the Inclusion Collaborative webpage. Or if you are in the main lobby, you can pick up the Warm Line flyer.
Thank you. Warm Line. That's one of our Family Resource Center networks, right? It's part of the Inclusion Collaborative, actually. Okay. Any other questions? The PowerPoint I did post online. Yes, so it was submitted. So all those photos and everything. Anything else? The Inclusion Collaborative website for this conference asked us to post the PowerPoints, and this one is all there with all the pretty pictures.
But on your sketch, all of the handouts are attached to, if you have this on your schedule and you click on your session, there is a section for handouts from the presenter, so they're all attached there.
I would just like to ask in the last minute, I would just like to know what one thing somebody's going to go do, I guess, after this is over on Friday or Monday. I just love to hear that and make you commit to it.
So what's really funny is I actually did this with my own children. They're all teenagers now, but they drove me crazy because they were 1, 2, 3, and 10 at one time. And I was like, oh yeah, I did that with my own kids. The little notebook thing with the schedule. I'm like, oh duh. I don't know why I didn't think of that sooner, but anyway, kind of felt silly. Thanks.
Thank you. So you found the visual supports and schedules to be effective too.
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
And I'm ELL trained too, so some of that just is common sense for me.
Mm-hmm.
But the schedule thing with the book that they can have that's just theirs, not the one on the wall, but like this is your own personal schedule, was awesome. So thanks for that.
Yeah, and I think the one thing the Affirm, and we have someone back there and up here, one thing the Affirm modules do for students with autism is there are implementation checklists to make sure that you're implementing it in the way the research said it would be effective for a student with autism. And there's also parent resources on there as well. So as when you get to the end of the module, it'll go, oh, here's some stuff for parents. And by the way, they're actually working on the Affirm modules to be more accessible and meaningful to paraeducators, and that'll be coming out soon. So we have one question over here. We have 1 minute left. Did you have somebody back there? I just wanted to add. We have to have the microphone so people that are streaming can hear you.
I just wanted to add that I really enjoyed seeing the tissue box and that whole setup.
Everybody loves that one.
Right, because I have a little girl who just sneezes and it goes everywhere. So definitely something that I will use and implement.
Have fun. I think that was one of the biggest hits, right, at Otis, is everybody's going, yeah. Cold season's coming up. And there was one other one. We'll take one last one here, and then we'll let you guys move on to your next session.
So we work for a nonprofit, and we would love to implement captains, just the entire, in Michigan. Something along those lines. We don't have anything like it, so that's what we will be doing on Monday.
Good. Give me a call. Well, I want to thank these people. Let's give them another round of applause. They're the implementers. They are living and breathing it. They're available for you guys to pick their brain once you start doing it. And thank you for selecting our session. Thank you.